everybody thinks that one thing that's going to kill your business is the market, a competitor, or the economy, which may or may not be true, of course, especially the economy, but it's not. It's actually you. And my guest today took a company that was on its knees and built it to almost 18 million pounds in sales. Now, what's really interesting, the founder went away for 2 years and the business kept on growing. And what that was really interesting, and that's really fascinating about today's topic. The question I have to ask you guys that are listening in, by the way, is, are you building a business or are you building a job that you can never quit? Welcome to The Business Strategist, the show for CEOs and founders ready to scale fast, lead smarter, and build a business that doesn't rely on them. I'm Adam Strong, award-winning strategist, former elite athlete, international speaker, and 3 times best-selling author. After 3 decades in business, I know exactly what it takes to grow, scale, and exit with impact. Each week, I dive into real conversations with industry experts, bold entrepreneurs, and clients navigating the uphill struggles of business, giving you the tools and the strategies to create more profit, more freedom, and more impact. Let's get into it. So my guest today is the amazing John Castro. Now, me and John have been friends for a few years now. It's actually taken me many months, by the way, to get him on the show, just for full disclosure. And what I love about John is that not only does he live in the trenches, he's got some really good, compelling stories, and he's put in frameworks to help do that. Now, today's specific episode is I'm going to be challenging John on his decision making, on his thought processes. He's going to be giving us some great frameworks, and we're also going to be talking a little bit about how you deal with the emotional roller coaster of actually growing and scaling and exiting a business. So without further ado, John, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I mean, that is a wonderful intro, mate. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate the compliment. It's very good. Yeah, it's been, do you know what? I actually look back at this. I think it's taking us almost 7 months from initial discussion, or it might have even been 12 months from when your agent actually reached out to me. So, but we're here now. It's all good.
We are here. So let's get it going, man. Ready to give you whatever you need from me, my man.
Very good. Very good. So for you guys that are listening in, by the way, as I always say to you, make sure you get your book and pen handy. If you're at the gym or listening, you're out walking the dog, make sure you pause this episode, okay? You're probably going to listen to it all the way through anyway, but make sure that you go back and rewind, because there will be some really big golden bombs in this one. So let's jump in. Listen, John, I know that it's almost 6 years ago, depending on when you're listening to this, of course. Back in 2020, you walked into a business that was basically falling apart. Now, I would have said that most people, most business leaders specifically, would have probably just walked away and said, you know what, out of my debt, not my problem, whatever it might be, right? But what did you see? What was the opportunity? What did you actually see that you thought, you know what, I can actually save this? What was the first thing that you looked at?
Yeah, sure. Let me give you a little bit backstory to that. So
do that.
Essentially, I went into that same company in 2017 to build out their sales team, and eventually became their GM, which was awesome. And I started running the business for them. And what happened is we were an events company, right? We were running events across the world. So what happened in 2020 was we couldn't run an events business. So overnight, literally, I'm standing there March 2020 with the team. We had about 25 people in the UK, at that point, probably about 20 in the UK, just under. And just said, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. And then suddenly we were never back. So yeah, we literally couldn't do anything. So we had to transition very quickly, and sat with the 2 original founders of the business. And they just wanted to give up. They were like, we've done this so many times. Like they were wealthy enough at the time. They created an abundance of wealth for themselves and their family. So they didn't really need the business anymore. And they didn't know whether they wanted to go through it. So essentially I convinced them to, take a cut, take leadership, and then we turned it around. And then the next 4 years, we did about 17.9 million in sales. Over those 4 years, we expanded into Germany, Scandinavia, and we turned ourselves into a digital business, essentially, around investing and trading in the stock market and crypto market. But what I saw, essentially, just to answer that question, was the foundation was there. It was just, how do we now make that transition? And then how do we actually make this so the business can actually operate and scale at the way we wanted it to? And I just felt we can't give up on something that was really helping individuals create financial freedom. That was what we were doing, traveling the world, teaching trading, investing, how to manage your own money, wealth creation, essentially. Why would we stop that? And I know that the founders were at that point of fed upness, and I just didn't, I just knew there was something there. The
Mm.
main thing I knew is that the foundation was there. We had an offer, we had a product, we had a service that we just needed to transition. So I was like, let's go for it. And then in the first year of going for it, we went from 2.6 to 4.7 million. And then the rest is history, essentially. From there.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Love
man.
that. What was the I mean, you talked about the fact that, at that first initial conversation you had with the two founders,
Mm,
and you had convinced them that actually you've got some legs in a business or whatever it is. Like, tell us a little bit more about that conversation, because I'd be interested to learn about that. I mean, obviously, if you don't say stuff that you can't obviously share or whatever it is, but
yeah.
I'm interested to learn more about that conversation, because it's interesting.
Mm,
I mean, I've had lots of conversations with founders that are looking to exit and
mm,
whatever it is, and they just want to just want to throw it away, but actually there's so much more value that they can mine from the business itself, yet they don't see it because they need a different perspective. So walk us through, how did you convince these
mm,
co-founders? What was it, what was the kind of, like, I don't know, catalyst, if you want to call it that? What was the kind of hook on bait for them to
mhm.
turn around and say, do you know what, John, maybe you're right?
Yeah, yeah. I think you'll be surprised by it. Actually, I told them that I would only get paid from the process if it was successful. So we put a
Mm,
financial agreement in place that allowed them to take the risk without taking financial risk. So what was the worst case scenario? I wasn't going to get paid unless I won the game of saving it. And although we had payroll and everything like that, we had more than enough in the bank to
mm,
fund the business for at least a year if we needed to. Now that wasn't what we wanted to do. We wanted it to transition in 90 days, which is still a short period of time. But to be able to sit in a room eventually and go, right, okay, well, let's do this, to make it as risk-free as possible. Don't even give me a cent of money unless we cause a result. So there was a staggered plan financially that we had to reach for me to even get paid. Right. So I came in, as you might, that famous word of an intrapreneur, but essentially I took just as much risk as them. Well, not just as much. I took enough risk for them to go, okay, let's let this guy take over and see what he can do. And then, like I said, in 12 months, pretty much added £2 million to the business very quickly. So they saw it worked, essentially. But that was the thing that took them over the edge. It took, no joke, probably 3 to 4 weeks to negotiate that. Wasn't
mm,
easy because they were essentially giving away something that they'd been running and taking money out of for 15 years. They were
mm.
giving away some of it, right? Or they were giving away some control and all this thing that founders have. And to convince them enough to go, look, I've already done this with the sales team. We've already transitioned. I've already done this for you. They saw my track record and was like, let's go. And then every 90 days we reviewed, and I just kept achieving and achieving and achieving. And, we, all three of us, created some great wealth from that process. It was really cool.
I love that. It's a really interesting story. What is it that you and talk to me a little bit about that shared risk element, because
Mm-hmm.
that's fascinating to me. Because did you come up with that idea and say, "Hey, so you could just pay me my salary and we all just walk away and that's it"?
Mm-hmm.
But how did you come to the conclusion, and why did you? I suppose, why did you come up with this idea of saying, "Okay, do you know what? Let's have some skin in the game here"?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I'm assuming that it was kind of some sort of consult to equity type of deal. But how did that work? Like, what was kind of like the hook and carrot? Tell me about that.
Well, look, I've always been a salesperson, so I've never
Mm,
really relied on salary. So I came from that mentality anyway. I've had
mm,
businesses before going into theirs and helping them scale theirs.
yep.
So not as successful as what I did with them, which was, a very different story. But I've always been entrepreneurial. So
Yes.
I've never really worried about making money because
Mm-hmm.
of the main skill set that I have is being able to sell stuff.
Mm,
Now, selling's evolved, marketing's evolved over, as you know, in the last 6 years. It's just we're in like this trust economy, which we can maybe go into later. But I can sell stuff. So my worst case scenario is pick up the phone and sell marketing services if I have to, whatever it is, right? So it didn't phase me as much as it would probably phase others, just because I'd always been bonus or cape commission mentality. That's the mentality I
yeah.
had. However, what I would say is when when doing it, yeah, of course, there was a bit of nervousness because I was literally like saying, okay, I'm coming in just like you. We're not going to, and none of us are going to take any money out of this business unless it's successful, unless we reach these numbers. So, but that's where it came from. And then actually, I tapped into a mentor of mine that I have been, friends with, but also a very close mentor that I've had for probably about 10 years at that time, always touch and go. And always when I had something, I always used to WhatsApp him or whatever. He helped me structure the agreement behind the scenes, if I'm honest. He helped me negotiate it and go, right, they've come back with this is what I would do. So I found people to help me go and help other people. Does that make sense? So I had
Absolutely.
my mentor here saying, okay, this is how I would structure this deal. If you're going to take, and actually, frankly speaking, what I did initially was not even an equity share. The reason I didn't do that, and a lot of business owners will probably understand, especially small business owners, they just had a lot. Let's just say they were running their life through their business, which we can go into later, because if you ever want to sell or scale, you've got to stop doing that. You haven't got a business if you're putting your entire life through the P&L. If your cleaner is through the P&L, like, stop it, right? It's not a business. So at that point, they weren't at the stage where they were going to make that transition. That eventually happened 2 years later, and the P&L became pure business P&L. But the first 2 years, I took a revenue share, and I took share of what money came into the business, not actually an equity or anything like that, just because. And that's another thing back to what actually convinced them, because equity is not easy to get from business owners. And actually, I would advise a lot of UK business owners, or any business owner, sorry, the small business under 5 million, to really consider other ways to incentivize people to help you scale than equity, because, it is still, that's wealth creation. So I understood that, right? And I had, firstly, one thing I say what really helped the deal is the compassion and empathy that, okay, you don't want to do equity, no worries, let's do this. And then, tapping into my mentor and then going behind the scenes, talking to him helping me negotiate it. He goes, right, let's ask for this percentage of it. And then I just went back and forth for 3-4 weeks. And eventually we came to a number that we all agreed on. And yeah, it was a good number. And as we scaled and obviously we made more money, I made more money, right? And they made more money. And it was just great. And they didn't have to give away anything in the beginning, none of that. So it was really, really, really great agreement.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I love the fact that you talked a little bit about revenue share, and interesting point about some of our listeners and them being so scared about giving equity. But I guess I think it entirely depends. I mean, I understand that equity is an asset creation. I totally get that, John. But I guess from my perspective is that it's a bit like, I guess it depends on the circumstances. If you've got a business that's turning over 5 million quid and you've got someone that can add some serious weight to the business, right? Why would you not give a small amount of equity away, provided that it provides a win-win situation? But I guess it all completely depends on the circumstances, doesn't it?
It does indeed, right? And I would say there's two parts to that. Today, I'm 9 times out of 10 wouldn't do something like that without equity, right? So if I could reverse back 6-7 years, I would have probably tried to stand my ground. I was a lot younger there. I know, 6-7 years isn't really a long time, but I was early 30s. I didn't, I just wanted to make this work. So I needed to give something and come into a middle ground. However, you're not wrong in the sense of, if you are like 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 million in turnover, and you want to go to 10, and you have someone that can come in and do that and help you do that, then there's by no means you should 100% consider an equity share with that person, or give them a 5-10% or an uplift, or even if it's just rev share at the beginning with an agreement to take equity once you hit some KPIs. That's absolutely fine, because I agree with you totally. Like, even today, I have an employee of mine on a rev share model, and over time, he will get equity in the next 2-3 years if he achieves his KPIs. And and by the way, his commitment to this business is ridiculous. Like, it's just extraordinary. Sometimes he tells me to get out of bed and get going. Do you know what I mean? So that's another thing as well. I would say to you, to touch on that, just before I stepped down as CEO, and when I stepped down 2024 now, it was around April was my last. When I stepped down, before I left, we did put in an agreement in that business where the entire leadership team would get a profit share at the end of the year, because we wanted to make sure that we started implementing tools like that and bonus structures like that to have that leadership team, which, by the way, 2.5 years later, whatever it is, are still there, more than likely because they have some skin in the game. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with you with that. I just think in that moment, and it being COVID and the world not really knowing what the fuck was going on, yeah, I needed to give something back in order to get, the control of the business that was theirs for 15 years,
It's really fascinating about this, and I just had this epiphany moment. We talked about equity and stuff, and
Mm.
I don't know, when I have conversations with people that are either raising, there's a seed raise going on or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really come to me is, again, you don't know what you don't know, right? And
Mm.
so if you've got someone that can really add some value, and
Mm.
you've got to then sacrifice some equity for that, and I've been in situations and listened to conversations where founders have just walked away and said absolutely no go. And from my perspective, I say to them, I'm like, so what's the real reason for that? And from my perspective, it's greed,
Mm.
right? It's greed. And you mentioned something which is really interesting. You got to have some skin in the game.
Mhm.
If you don't have skin in the game, then where's the shared risk? It's all about risk management. And so and that's kind of like where you're going down this pathway, this alignment, if you want to call it that. And it's interesting what you just shared there, which is if I'd have gone back 6 or 7 years, I probably would have changed it for consult equity
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
I'll
So,
tell you why I would have as well, and I'll add to that. I think you're not wrong. I think whenever you consult your clients, whenever I talk to, as you know, I work with dozens of UK business owners now and helping them scale and get to that point of whether they can potentially exit all of that. And the one thing I always say to them is don't be afraid to give some of it away, because
mm,
at the end of the day, those individuals will be able to contribute. They'll have their skin in the game. They'll see a future just like you do. Now, I'm not saying don't stagger it. I'm not saying don't get creative. And also don't maybe start with a profit or revenue share and then transition to equity, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
I get it. And on your word greed, I think my experience, especially from that moment, because it
mm,
got quite intense, especially with
mm,
COVID
mm,
going on in the background. It was a pretty intensive time. I say my experience is it's a control thing a lot more than I found in greed. And I even find it with owners today. I'm like, you just want to take control because at some level there is one thing, and I'm sure you've seen this 1,000 times, where the main thing that I've found that keeps small business owners stuck is actually, yeah, we can go into systems, tactics, strategies. It's ego. Like you think
100%.
you know everything about your business better than anyone else, and you probably do at some level.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to scale, it's okay that you get someone that isn't an owner, entrepreneur, that has a commercial skill set that can come in, because frankly, what we need to do as business owners is step back and go, we actually aren't the smartest people in the room. We've actually probably got the most resilience. We've probably got the most, what's the word, motivation and ambition than most people. But
Mm,
it's okay to get someone with a skill set over here that may not have the resilience as a business owner that you have, but you can give them the foundation to just like go and take your business to the next level. And
mm,
that's what they love to do. My younger brother is a great example of that. He is not I wouldn't say he's an out and out business owner. He's not the biggest risk taker. He's become accustomed to a lifestyle in where we are today in London, but he goes into construction companies and he plays and he's always a directorship role operationally, commercially, and he adds so much value to those businesses. So it makes sense to get him part of the deals, which is what he
mm,
does. But is he one that's going to own a big construction company one day? I don't know, but maybe not. And you'd take someone like my brother Anthony, you'd put him in knowing he's now brokering deals for a firm at the moment that they would never get this land and opportunity to build, get these pieces of land in London
mm, mm,
unless Anthony had his contacts and his commercial mindset. So these
mm,
two owners of this construction company who just, again, through grit, determination, have built this 50 million pound thing, have now got my brother in who's come from a corporate commercial background and gone, well, actually, if you want to go to 150 million or 250 million, my experience shows me we need to do this. So now that's cool because they've got someone that maybe isn't the business owner mindset, but they've got
yeah,
a commercial mindset, and you just keep being the business owner that takes the risk. And frankly, my experience with business owners, hopefully this will, for everyone that's listening, one
mm,
thing I want them to understand when they're running a small business, your job is to make the decisions on the risks your employees aren't willing to do. That's
yeah,
actually your main job, is to make decisions on the risks that they just aren't willing to do, which is usually financial risk or business risk in that sense. And that's your main job. sign the checks that you and analyze it, that allows your business to scale, but then put the team in place that will then execute on that strategy.
Yeah.
That's really what you should be doing as an owner
Love it.
eventually. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And we'll talk about the framework that you created a little bit on. I
Sure.
want to quickly sort of ask you a quick one around the whole control side of stuff, because
Mm.
I mean, you listen, you work with a lot of business owners and founders like me, and you will have had lots of conversations and this reluctancy to give up control
Mhm.
because, and generally it's not their fault in a way, is it? And it's kind of like, we talked offline about the economy of trust as well. How do you work with founders and
Mm.
business owners that are wrestling with this whole idea or the whole ideology
Mhm.
of trying to give up control?
Mhm.
And do you kind of say to them, is there a transitional phase, or how do you kind of convince people, well, you know what, this is where you're at. You can actually be here if you actually put these things in place.
Mhm.
But how do you kind of like convince them, like, and get them to overcome that mental block? Hey guys, I just wanted to take this opportunity to make you aware of a brand new tool that we've just created called the Exit Readiness Assessment. Now, it is for founders and CEOs that are looking to exit from their business operations. Now, it doesn't matter even if you're not looking to exit right now, I would highly recommend to go and take the assessment straight away. It helps you to identify areas in your business that you need to work on to help you towards that exit strategy. And at the end of it, you get a personalized report on some of the areas that you're doing particularly well in and some of the areas that you need to make some improvements to. Make sure you head over to readytoexit.scoreapp.com. That's readytoexit.scoreapp.com. Enjoy.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things there, really. The first thing is the reason they don't trust their team to execute in the way they think they can execute. As I said, we touched on the ego part, but
Yep.
also you just don't have, and this is going to be the most cliche thing your listeners have probably heard before, but they just don't have the systems in place that they trust that can give to the team to execute at the level that they want to execute it at. However, what's also got to be what they've got to be clear on is at some level in the beginning, they may not do it as good as you. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because you own the business. So you're going to do the little bit extra because your bills come from that business in the sense of it's your wealth creation tool. They're doing a job. So as long as you understand that, yes, get the systems in place, but they may never do it as good as you. But if they do it at a level that you can still uphold a high standard in your niche or industry you're in, and then it can release you to do what you should be doing, which is strategic thinking and strategic growth, then why does it matter that they didn't cross the T once because that's how you would do it? That's okay. Did they get the outcome, and is the client happy with the outcome where they would give you a 5-star review? Okay, cool. So why do you care? And I think it goes back to something funny enough I got from the Stephen Covey book. I can't remember its name now, but the Habits book. But
The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
that's it. Yeah. Where the end in mind. I remember reading that. I was like, shit, I've really got to start thinking with the end in mind and the outcome, and how we get there doesn't actually matter. Jeff Bezos said something really famous as well, where he said, be stubborn on the vision, but flexible on the, I can't remember the execution. Yeah. Or something like that. Right.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they have to do. They have to be stubborn on, okay, I want it to be done. I want my business to run like this, but how are we going to get there? I don't know. Does that actually matter? And I think that's something they need. And that's why you and me exist, if we're honest, right? We need to put the mirror in front of them and go, look, stop, and actually just let go,
Yeah.
trial it. But if your systems are good as well, and you haven't got systems, that's why they stress out, because there's a lack of clarity, there's a lack of systems, there's a lack of strategy, and they don't actually know how to hand it over. But once you've done that, hand it over, let it go. Yeah. That
It's
helps.
interesting. Yeah, absolutely. I was interesting. I remember actually working with a lawyer, believe it or not, and she was a complete control freak, and most lawyers are, because they're so logistic, so left-brained. And it was really interesting. And for you guys, if you are, by the way, extremely love your job, extremely knowledgeable and left brain logistical mindset, one of the things that I found really works really well, John,
Mm.
is actually making a full list of all the things that you do on a weekly basis and say, what would you be confident in handing over? And it's kind of like baby steps, you know what I mean? Like you do one bit, one bit, one bit. And then eventually you're able to then kind of go, oh my God, I'm giving all this away. And you're okay with that. You know, it's kind of a transitional period, but I know about the struggle and I hear the struggle for you guys that are listening in, by the way. So, but thanks very much for sharing that with us.
I'll add to that actually, mate, because I
Yeah,
think
go
you
on.
nailed that actually. And that's the first thing I do with any business owner I work with is we have something I've developed called the founder efficiency system. And it's
Mm,
literally a brain dump of what you do every day, every week, every month. What are those tasks you do? And we score them on growth impact. We score them on energy level. We score them on what area of the business that actually is. So for example, I had a business owner the other day fill it out and he put in an Amazon order. And I was like, what do you mean Amazon orders? He's like, yeah, I do like, when we need office stuff. I'm like, what are you do? Like, why is that even in your awareness, at £2.5 million turnover? So that's something, that's something immediately we're like, and I know it's only like 30 minutes a month, an hour a month. It doesn't matter. It's brain capacity that we're trying to release. It's not actually sometimes just time. So
mm,
what you're saying there is exactly what we need. Any business owner should do first, get clarity on the 5, 7, like quick wins. Then the next 5, 7, like what I call friction points, like
yeah.
what's really coming back to you all the time that shouldn't be. And
Mm,
then we put systems to those things first, delegate those as quickly as possible, and then we start ticking off that list over the next 90 days. But you're exactly right. It's exactly what everyone should be doing.
yeah.
It's the simplest thing, and we just don't do it because
Yeah.
it's so simple. We think, is it that effective? Yeah, actually, most of the time, actually, the simple things are the things we should be doing.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And
Mm.
you just don't know what you don't know either. And,
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
but I love that. Now, I know that, some of our founders that are listening in today, they've got service-based businesses. Some of them are doing 500,000, £750,000, decent money, but everything goes through them. Like literally they make all the decisions. They firefight, they do everything. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. Now I know that you've created the STS framework.
Mhm,
How does that STS framework help someone like a service-based founder that's
mhm,
doing that kind of revenue that
mhm.
has the potential for growth? How does it plug the gaps?
Yeah, brilliant question. So the STS framework works really simply is systems, team, strategy. That's the
Okay.
STS, right? Systems, team, and strategy. Within systems, team, and strategy, there are 4 phases that every business owner around 500,000, £750,000, anywhere around 1 million. And my clients on average are around 1.6 million on average.
Nice.
So that kind of number.
Yep.
The first thing we have to do is look at what I call the fundamental foundations of your business. That is the systems. That is, okay, how do we
Mhm.
map out the business? What are you still involved in? Let's circle those friction points. Let's put playbooks. I call them playbooks. Some people call them SOPs. I don't like SOPs because that vision of SOP means it's like a long document. We don't do long documents anymore with video, AI, and all that. You don't need any of that, right? So we just put those foundations in place. We put a team function chart in place, which is, okay, well, who have you got, whether it be contractors? I want your accountant on there. I want to know everyone that helps you operate this business and what they do, their capacity, their functions, and then we can start looking at who we give away stuff to. That's the first phase. Then we've got another phase, which they've got to start looking at data. I mean, probably seen this 1,000 times. People want to sell their business and you don't know your numbers. You are never going to sell your business if you cannot just spit numbers out. I'm talking like gross profit, net profit, cost per acquisition, lifetime value of client. You've got to know those things
Yeah.
to be valuable.
Yes.
So once we've got foundations in place, which are systems, the second part of your systems is, okay, how do we actually scorecard our business from everything from how we generate money, how we generate revenue and profit. So like I call that growth scorecarding, how we then actually deliver the service, which is like fulfillment scorecarding, utilization rates, delivery rates, project management timelines,
Mhm.
all of that kind of stuff we need to know. like average time so if you're an accountant, you work with predominantly law firms from my mindset. So let's use that as an example. So if you're a law firm I know they track per 6 minutes, right? So that's a very interesting niche. So the good news is you're already tracking that. But what on average are they not billing to billing? Like that's really important. Like when they send out their invoice, what's non-billing work? What's billing work? Well, that non-billing work we should try and systemize that first. So the lawyer's not doing the non-billing work, right? That should be someone, frankly speaking, that should just be someone, a good admin person. Does that make sense?
Agreed.
So it's things like that. And if we don't scorecard it and we don't know the numbers of the average non-billing per client and all of that, then where are we going to go? The next thing as well, to finish up on scorecarding, is you as an owner need what I call a CEO scorecard, which is a very common thing. Like if you look at any business I know that does 5, 10, 15, 25, 50 million, they're like, yeah, I've got like this CEO dashboard or a CEO scorecard. And that is usually 12 to 20 core metrics of your business, everything from invoice values to cash in the bank, cash buffers, all the way down to, again, overall business utilization rate, overall conversion rate, overall lifetime. Like it's like your overview of the entire business. So those are the first things we need to do. Those are your systems. We have to get those in place. And by the way, it sounds like a lot. Give yourself 2 to 3 months. You'll get 70, 80% of that done. If you just focus 2-3 hours a week for about 60 to 90 days, you can get a lot of that done. And it's not as complicated as people they think it is. But like you said, they don't know what they don't know, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. So that's the first thing.
That's the first thing, right? Yeah, systems.
And then the next thing is the team, right? So then you've got all of this stuff and you've got let's look at your team. So we now have to review these individuals that you've hired. And this is one of the hardest parts, which I call purposeful people, because what happens today, and you'll experience this as well, is that especially as millennials and Gen Zs are coming into the work market and the millennials are now becoming the directors and moving up the ladders, they are very different to our mums and dads. They think differently. Social media has changed how they do life,
100%.
right? Everything. So at some level, they are looking for something worthy. I know sometimes they can put themselves on pedestals too much, and I don't want to go into that stuff, but the fact is your team are looking for something purposeful. They want to go to work and actually enjoy it. They actually aren't looking to just pay mortgages anymore, because they actually know they probably won't even get a mortgage one day because of the way that, it's just very different thinking. Yeah. So when we've got these systems, we've got to go look at our team and are we managing and leading them properly? So we need to put infrastructure in for that, whether it be regular check-ins, regular one-to-ones. And I'm not talking like regular as in like, what people say, oh yeah, I meet my team every 6 months. No, those aren't one-to-ones. Those are appraisals. Those meetings are usually someone looking to come and ask for a pay rise. That's really what they are. What you need to do is once a month actually speak to them. How are you? Know their family members, know what's going on with them, and actually come and lead these individuals and hold them accountable, though, to the systems you've just built, to the KPIs we've just put in place, to the scorecards, to the playbooks, to the what I call mapping, the value mapping of the business, that kind of stuff. Once you've got the people in, well, what's the vision now? There's a strategy. We need to go, what's the vision? What's the 3-year plan? And can we communicate that and cascade that down to the team where everyone is what we call heading in the same direction? Elon Musk calls it vectoring, where everyone is going in the same direction. And that's the strategy element. We have to have a strategy with a 3-year plan that works in what I call, we just spoke offline, 90-day sprints, right? 90-day quarterly meetings that look at the business over 90 days. You can't scale a business in 2 weeks. It's got to be done in 90-day chunks. The tax man works in 90 days. We should work in 90 days, right? And that's how we look at it. So you got your systems, you've got your team, which is your people, and then you've got your strategy, which is your long-term vision and how you're going to execute that you can also communicate down to your team. So that's the entire thing that everyone, in my experience now, needs to do without a shadow of a doubt. With that, you've got a sellable asset.
Yeah. So got a quick question. So you're saying, so with regards to the SES framework that you've created, when can this be implemented? Is there a certain turnover that they need to be hitting for it to be fully effective? What have you found?
I have found that the minimum turnover, and I'm talking not like your first year, if you have constantly been hitting 50 grand a month turnover, 500K a year, and you've been doing that 3, 4, 5 years in a row, you're at a place where you need this stuff because
Yes.
this stuff is going to get you to 1 million, 1.5, and then the next level, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're at even 1 million to 5 million, I'm working with a founder right now and a business owner right now who's doing about 4.7 million. And he's still like, he was like, oh, mate, I'm just drained. And he does, what are those garden rooms at the back of houses and stuff like that? You know, those,
Oh,
and he
yeah,
builds
yeah. He
those,
does
right?
those special builds and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
like, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
everyone's getting home offices or garden rooms, and he does
yeah.
those.
My accountant's got
And he
one.
actually, what he said to me is he hit 4 million and he had to shrink because it got so stressful. Do you see what I mean? So, and that's because he just didn't have this stuff in. So I would say 500K to about 5 million. I mean, you'd be surprised if you're at 10 million and you're still in the day to day, then you need this stuff. But I would say that's the sweet spot for this stuff I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Because when you're over 5 million and let's say you net on average 20%, you've got enough cash flow, frankly, to just go and get 4 or 5 great bloody leaders, drop net profit for a year or two while they just go and do it all for you. But when you don't have that and you're under that, you need to start putting this in yourself a little bit. And that's how you then can go get those leaders.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say, because I was going to push you back on the framework and stuff, because I think that there's obviously, you know, an element of listeners that are doing 100 to 500K, and that's still good turnover, ladies and gents, by the way. But I feel like probably the focus then shifts to more profitability first, so you have more cash flow generation, and then people, and then systems, because then you've got, like you said, got the resources to then plug in to make your life easier, isn't it?
Absolutely. I'd add to that as well. When it comes to cash flow, the reason you probably have cash flow issues is because you've got inefficient systems and you don't track your numbers properly. Because if you tracked your numbers properly, there'll probably be work and projects that you take on depending on your industry. But any client, you might actually say no to people because you realize there's no margin in it. But I've worked with business owners that take on work and they're like, yeah, I needed it because I'm like, well, what for? Because there's no margin, right? With all respect to everybody listening, whether you're at 100K or 100 million, business is about making profit. And that's not because of greed. That's because that's our scorecard of having a good business. That's it. Like, why, unless you're a non-for-profit or you're a charity, we need to make profit. We need to make cash flow. So yeah, man, it's very important. And I would say that for those people that are making a little bit less than 500,000, you should still start looking at systems. You just may not need as many as all the stuff I've just said, but you definitely, like, you might have 2-3 people in your team. Okay, well, as a team, that's even juicier because you can sit together and they're probably a lot more involved and you can start doing these things now. So when you do get to 500,000, 1 million, you've already got some foundation in place. Because when you hire staff as well, back to people, nobody wants to come into a chaotic business. Nobody wants to work in that. They don't know they're going to come and work in that. And then people go, well, they don't stay long. Well, they don't stay long because, frankly, with all respect to everyone, I hope this doesn't come across wrong, but you're terrible to work for. That's why, because they're coming into chaos. So if it's chaos for you, why would they want to manage your chaos? Do you see what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I think, again, I'm directing a lot of what I'm saying to the business owner. So if you're listening and this is really to the business owner.
Yes.
Like, if you are chaotic and you hire a team to try and fix that, no one wants to fix chaos, but they are happy to come in and support systems and structure and adapt them and evolve them. But please don't think like I can't stand this hire your way to success stuff. Yeah, that is for, and I say this with all the respect, that is for like the seasoned entrepreneur doing tens of millions, or 5 million and above. When you're below 5 million, yes, you need to hire your way to success, quote unquote. But no good A player asked to be a business owner. Otherwise they would be one. So they don't want to come into a business and clean up chaos unless you are giving them, segue forward, equity, share, all of that. But if you're just paying them a salary, they want to come in. A players want to come in and hit the ground running.
Of course they do.
So they don't, hopefully that helps your listeners to understand.
No, absolutely.
When you're looking at team members, ignore this hire your way to success stuff unless you've got great systems in place, because it just won't work.
Yep. Agreed. Love that. Is there any such thing as, because I know you're hugely passionate about systems because that's your thing, but is there any such thing as, can you over systemize a business? Is there any point where processes, playbooks, all of this, all this systems nonsense that we're talking about, where it begins to choke the business rather than kind of making it more efficient? Have you seen that?
I absolutely have seen that. You are not wrong, mate. to the point where I saw a business owner who had a process on how to use the coffee machine. And I was like,
What?
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 Why? Why do you? Oh, I just want to make sure everyone keeps the thing clean. I get it, right? Just have like a kitchen rules or something, but you don't need like a document on how to use it. I mean, it comes with a manual, you know. But yeah, you're absolutely not wrong, and I think that is the biggest misconception of what a lot of people think when they talk about processes or SOPs, and you think you need to document absolutely everything. And I couldn't disagree more. What you need to document first, phase one, is what the 4, 5, maybe 7 friction points or bottlenecks or things that you shouldn't be dealing with. Start with you, start there, and even for 1 year, nail those. No, those 7 things that keep coming back to you. I'm talking like client inquiries. You're still writing proposals and quotes, which by the way, you don't need humans for anymore with bloody Claude. You
True.
just set up a Claude project and it should be doing your quotes for you. Right. We won't go into that, but that's what you should be doing. But the point I'm making is, yeah, you're not wrong. Like they just, and I'm like, funny enough, I had a client, I hope he doesn't see this, but I had a guy come to me the other day. He owns care homes and he's like, yeah, I'm doing all these SOPs. And he showed me, I'm like, oh my God, no wonder your team are like, no, please don't do this stuff, because he's got hundreds of what I call digital dust. That's all you've created.
Digital dust.
Yeah. No one wants to deal with that stuff, right? They just don't. So I couldn't agree more with what you're saying. And I've seen it a lot. And also for those who haven't done it yet, don't let thinking you need 100 SOPs stop you starting small. 2, 3, 4, 5 core functions that keep bothering you, that you feel you shouldn't be doing. Start there. And then we build from there. You know, that's how I would personally do it. And it's worked phenomenally for my clients.
How would you, I mean, it's really interesting. Like, you know, you've gone from, you know, I suppose ex GM of sales to CEO role, and now you run your own consultancy effectively. How have you created that? What's been the mindset shift for you? Because they've 3 different roles, three different skill sets. And yet you have kind of like, you know, you're seeing things, you're seeing patterns, and you're seeing whatever it is, and you're duplicating whatever it is that you're seeing. How have you found those transitional periods in your career? And what's been the main identity shift for you?
That is a really good question, mate. Really good question. Let me think about this because I want to give a really valuable insight for people. Okay, I think the main thing for me, obviously, when you're a CEO, it's just a completely different role.
Yes.
It really isn't about doing stuff, if I'm honest. So the last 2 years as a CEO, I always say to people, and they think, what do you mean? I'm like, I didn't actually do much. Like I didn't have a full inbox. I didn't have, because I had an EA who dealt with that. So, you know, as you become a CEO, what you're really doing is you're shifting from being a bit of a doer, strategic thinker. Like as a GM, for example, I was a strategic thinker. I still done stuff. Sometimes I even took a few sales calls because I liked it. And, you know, I got involved. I went on the sales floor and coached people. As a CEO, you actually realize you don't need to do any of that. What you actually are doing is managing 4 or 5 core leaders of the business who then cascade everything down to the team, right? And being an expert at doing that, being an expert at seeing pattern recognition, whether it be in the business or in the people running the business, where you can adjust things and be agile. Also looking strategically, whether you're looking for expansion. So we built a country partner in Germany. That's my time is there. My time was, what can we do in Scandinavia? We had a country partner there. My time was, okay, do we now frankly minimize our team slightly in the UK and start looking at South Africa and India? And we did that. And we had South Africa team members. We had teams in India. We had teams in Germany. And that was what I was doing. But the physical running of the business, I didn't do much. I led it. I sat in boardrooms. I let the team present to me. They gave me recommendations. We had a process that we run through, which I teach my clients now. When you do your, what we call HODS meetings, heads of department meetings, you don't do lead, you lead it in the sense of you're at the top, let's for example, but they come in and they fill in what this template that I give them to give to their team, which shows right, highlights, lowlights. Here is my scorecard. Here's my KPIs where I'm at. Here's where I need help. We don't need to know what you're doing well at the moment. If you need help, this is what this meeting's about. any recommendations, you've always got to come with solutions. So any recommendations, and then that's what I was doing. So that transition was so hard to the point I had a team member come to my office once and sit down and ask me to leave her alone. That's how much I wasn't a CEO in the beginning, because she just needed to be left alone, because I'm so used to being like on the trenches and on the floor, if you know what I mean. And that was a huge shift for me. And until the actual team members sat me down and go, look, we get that you've built this thing. We get that you know, your culture, your energy's in it, but we got this, man. And I was like, all right, cool. And then the last 2 years, I really stepped back and I was like, okay, let them flow. And it just kept growing, mate. It was awesome. So that was a massive shift.
It's really interesting. I love that story, by the way. How do you compare the role of CEO to founder, you know, in terms of, because I mean, two very different roles, you've held both of them, but because, and again, the reason I'm asking this question is because, you know, we have business owners and founders that are listening in right now, and then there'll be people in management, which is CEOs. How does the role differentiate between the two? Is there much of a differentiation? Because what you're saying is, when I was a CEO, I just let everyone trust the process and whatever it is. Is there really much differentiation between a CEO and a founder role?
Absolutely. I have found that because you're the founder or the owner, which is what a lot of my clients call themselves, they're not very founder. I find a bit of an American terminology, but they definitely. But founder or owners, the biggest difference is you think you are the business. Technically, even if you look at it like administrationally, you aren't. You just own shares in a document that says there's a business called this, right? Called John Castro Limited.
Sure.
So to go from that to a CEO, you have to remember you have a role which essentially is employed by this entity to do a specific job. The challenge, what I find with owners and founders, is because they are so attached and their identity is the business, they even let themselves get away with too much. To be a CEO and to be what I call a scalable CEO, you cannot think like a founder, which brings us back to that point I was saying, where even putting things through your business, living your lifestyle through your business. I had an owner a few months ago say to me, yeah, I'm setting up another business because I've hit 1.6 million and I don't want to have to do accrual accounting. And so he's gonna invoice his service part of his business in this business and invoice his projects from this business. I'm like, yeah, but how your clients are going to get two different limited companies? They're going to be so similar, it doesn't matter. I'm like, bro, like I get it, but growth and play and having to move with the tax system is a good thing. And that's the CEO that knows. And I had to have that convo with the original founders of Investment Mastery and go, no, we've got to stop this. Like, we've got to start building the P&L as a business. Not easy, bro, because, you know, and I'm not saying, some of you out there listening are probably might have a wife on the payroll.
Yes.
You might have a family member.
Even your pet dog.
You might have your kids there, which is fine. No, you might even have a nice car going through, and somehow you convince the tax man that car is for business. Guys, if you're driving a Lambo or a Range Rover and you're going through your car and you have an accounting firm, it's very hard to justify why a Lamborghini helps you run an accounting firm. The point I'm making is that's the mindset shift is you cannot be the business when you're trying to be the CEO that wants to scale and exit. If you want to scale and exit, you've got to shift and step back and actually, frankly, take dividends and prove you can take dividends, right? Enough out. Because when someone buys it, guess what they want to do? They want to take dividends, right?
So true.
And if you can't prove that you've been able to do that over 3 to 4, 5 years, they're not buying a business, are they? They're buying something what we call a lifestyle business, which a lot of business owners probably listening to this have got, frankly. And that's the different shifts of owner, founder to I'm a CEO now. I'm an owner, I'm a CEO, I operate here and I take money out just like everyone else and I pay myself, and my lifestyle's over here. It's separate. And we've got to do that. And even with this, you're asking about, because obviously I'm now back in founder mode, right? We're in startup consulting firm. Now we're multiple 6 figures already. We'll be on track for 7 in our probably, I would say, year 2, so our first 7-figure year. So, and I can do that because I've done it before, but I'm already treating this business, I'm already treating this business the way I would treat it as if it was going to be sellable. Now,
Yes.
I don't think this consulting thing is something I want to sell or anything. It's kind of like my passion, purpose, cash flow thing.
Mm-hmm.
But nevertheless, you ask my accountant, I don't put anything through that I don't need to. Do I put the odd flight through? I hope no tax man's listening here. Do I do this? I get it, man. Yeah, but do I go and put cars through it? Do I put no, I personally don't do that, because if I'm telling all my owners how to treat their P&L, I need to be an example. But at the same time, I just like showing I earn money. Why? Because whenever you want to scale, guess what you might need one time? You might need lending. You might need investors. You might need to give away equity. And if you're giving away equity on a P&L that looks like you make 10% because you take out and you put so much through the business, but actually if you stop doing that, you'd actually make 20%. It's all that kind of stuff, mate. And
I can so resonate with that. I actually, and you made a really valid point there. And so for you guys that are listening, by the way, especially if you're looking to grow through acquisitions, or you're looking to raise equity or release some equity or whatever it might be, right? The bank, your investors, private equity, or whatever it is, those are the guys that have got the money. Those are the guys that are going to lend the money. And if they see on your P&L that you basically make a tenth of what your actual turnover is, maybe you should really kind of think about your tactics right now, because, and that, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, is what's going to keep you stuck.
Agreed.
Because ultimately, you've got nothing else. So you do change that mindset. It might sound good short term, but I can tell you now, long term, it will hurt you. Okay,
Agreed.
it will hurt you. So it's a good one. I like that, John.
You know what? No one's buying a P&L that they can't take money out of, right?
No.
Unless they're a turnaround person, which, by the way, most people go in like building acquisitions, whether they're PE or a family office or a VC. The fact is they're looking to buy revenue now.
Yes.
And they're also something that I've learned recently, because I'm going into the acquisitions game next year. So I'm getting very privy to that market. Is business, don't try and how do I explain this? I'm trying to use it. Okay, don't eat all the meat on the bone, right? You want to leave some of the meat for the buyer. And that's okay, because you're about to get a nice lump sum that should change your life. If you're selling for a lump sum that isn't going to change your life, I don't know why you're selling, right? So give that buyer a bit of meat on that bone still that they can then go and either chew themselves and benefit from, or they see an opportunity to take it to another level that maybe you didn't want to or couldn't do. But if you eat all the meat on the bone, no one's going to want to buy your business. They want to buy businesses with some meat on it. I'm using a really,
but it's a great metaphor.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's like no one wants to take the scraps, ladies and gentlemen. Fucking people hate scraps, right?
Yeah.
People hate that
Now,
crap.
I would. I probably would, because I actually am quite good at turnarounds, as you know, right?
Yeah,
I don't mind going in there and going,
yeah.
okay, let me just change this up, and I'll take it from 10% net to 20% in 2 years or 1 year, whatever. I would. I'm attracted to that stuff a little bit, but most 99% of people buying businesses, properly buying businesses, not, these Instagrammers saying they're buying businesses, but proper people that buy a business, they need some meat on the bone. They want to be able to, they're trying to buy a business that gives them money. And if you try and sell a business that doesn't show they can take money out, why are they buying it?
Exactly.
So I agree with you. If your listeners are looking for that stuff, please, please, please run a P&L that a buyer can see there is meat on the bone, or an opportunity to take it to a level that maybe it's all good, man. It's fine. Yeah.
Absolutely agree. Hey guys, me again. And I just want to remind you about the Exit Readiness Assessment, the most amazing tool for CEOs and founders that are looking to build a self-managing company. This will help you to identify what's blocking you from helping you to step out your business operations and effectively scale up and eventually exit over the next 12 to 36 months. It gives you a personalized report, and you can complete it in less than 4 minutes. All you have to do is head over to readytoexit.scoreapp.com. That's readytoexit.scoreapp.com to get your personalized score. Enjoy. Now, for you guys that are listening, hopefully you're getting some value from our conversation. I certainly am. I've been ferociously writing down some notes with John, which is really good. But now what we're going to do, we're going to do the fun part, which is the coaching part. Now, I thought, John, that actually one of your one of your big passions actually is talking about mental health. And
Mm.
we see that in some of your LinkedIn posts and some of the other stuff that you put on social media.
Mhm.
And I'd love to kind of like talk a little bit about that, because I know certainly from as an entrepreneur and as a founder myself,
Mm.
I think being human, of course, I think we all struggle with our mental health.
Mhm.
And me personally, I do struggle with balancing, family life and having kids, and like there's a lot of things to juggle. You know that because I mean, you got a wife and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
it's very difficult, and I find people that, or founders more specifically, that have not experienced what I call the founder's roller coaster have never lived, in a nutshell. But most people generally have been on that roller coaster. But but I don't know. I found it particularly sometimes you go through phases of life, or certainly I do, that like I'll never give up. Right? That's just me. Right? That's my DNA. Like I know I'll never give up.
Mm.
But I can tell you now, John, sometimes it can wear you down, like
Mhm.
really wear you down. Do you have any tips about people that are on an emotional roller coaster, where it might happen every 12 months, every 6 months, or
Mhm.
even every sort of 5 years? What do you advise some of your clients on that emotional roller coaster? Because, I mean, listen, like you had alluded in our conversation, which you're absolutely bang on,
Mhm.
the founder is very much emotionally attached to the business,
Mhm.
because it's their life, it's their passion, it's
Yeah.
what they've built effectively. What do you advise people?
I'm going to go two directions with this. I'm going to go tactical, and then
Yep.
we'll go a bit of mindset stuff. All right.
Sounds
So,
good, man.
tactically, the reason that you're probably stressed about your business is two things. You either think you need to do 100 things and you never get any of them done. So we need to now actually simplify that list of 100 things and
Mm,
prioritize where we spend our time in our business, because you just cannot do especially probably the listeners here who are probably sub 5 million with a smaller team of maybe five,
mm.
10. You can't do what Amazon's doing. And that's okay, right? So just take your 100 ideas, pick two or three every 90 days that you're going to give energy and effort to, and everything else goes in a box. It will help you de-stress. You just have to accept you can't do it all right now, and that's okay. One step, because over 2, 3, 4 years, those small projects that you take on one bite at a time will compound, and
Mm,
eventually you'll go from
agreed.
500K and suddenly you're £5 million business with 30 staff, right?
Mm, mm.
But if you just keep and the reason we have this list of 100 things to do, and I'm going to go a little bit now to what we do personally, is social media. You're
Yeah.
just consuming more than you're creating.
Yes.
And we all
Agreed.
do it. I
Yep.
doom scroll, you doom scroll. We all have those. By the way, Jeff Bezos probably has a moment where he has a doom scroll. Maybe not. Or maybe he's that unique, but I know Elon Musk doom scrolls because he's on Twitter. He's on X more than anyone, right? So, and I know some extremely successful people that make hundreds of millions of dollars in their business that have a doom scroll now and again. However, they are very good at knowing what to watch and listen to. And actually, funny enough, a lot of the most successful entrepreneurs, they don't actually follow business people on social media. They follow comedians, they follow, stoicism stuff. They're not
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
actually follow. But nevertheless, that's my point, is that you've got just so much going on because you think you have to do 100 things. It's back to that processes thing. You think you need 100. No, you don't. Same with your project, same with your business. And the reason you think you've got 100 things to do is because you're consuming too much rather than just getting on with the work. And when you don't do what you said you was going to do, emotionally, we feel shit, right?
Yes.
We feel like we're failures because we associate not doing work with failure. And the reason you're not doing work is because you're trying to do too much. And that's a fact. And
Mm,
it's okay to focus on 2, 3 things only. That's okay. And those
mm.
2, 3 things will move the business forward 1%, 1%, 1%. And over a year, as I said, that compounds. So that's the tactical part of it that
Love
will
that.
help you understand why you're feeling that way. Because I'm sure, like you, a lot of us have a to-do list. I tell my clients every day, at worst case, at minimum, every week, I want you to write down what you did, not what you didn't do. What did I complete this week? What did I complete today? Because
Mm.
mentally, that's going to shift your emotion to go, shit, I actually did quite a lot. And I'll tell you where I got this from. It's actually one of my a therapist of mine, where I had a moment where I stepped down as CEO where I was lost for 6 to 12 months a little bit. I was like, who am I now? Like, what do I do?
Mm.
I literally woke up. I'm not going to an office of 25 people. I'm not jumping on 10 Teams calls today. This is really weird. Anyway, we started talking, and he said it to me once. He goes, you relate rest and not working with being unproductive. And being unproductive means you're a failure. And I'm like, wow.
That's interesting. I like that. I can totally relate to that, John.
Right. It's like you stop doing work, so now your business is going to fail. I'm like, so for all the founders, the owners here, it's not like it's okay to enjoy
Mm.
the British sun right now and have a pub garden night tonight with England, right? It's okay because, by the way, none of your clients care about you at 10 p.m. or 9 p.m. kickoff for the World Cup tonight. Like no one cares, right? No one's thinking about you right now. But on Monday they might be. So that's okay. So deal with it Monday. So it's kind of like, as I said, just to give it full circle, is you think you've got a lot to do when you actually don't because you're just consuming too much, not creating, right? So what you need to do is prioritize and filter what's the biggest priority in the business right now, focus on that, and actually acknowledge yourself when you complete something so your mind and your emotions go, actually, I'm all right. I'm actually doing all right. And when my therapist said that to me, he also asked me to tell me what I did in one day. And he stopped me at 8:30 a.m. Right? I was going, okay, well, I did this. He goes, do you know by 8:30, you have done something for your health. You have been responsible. You've taken the dog for a walk. So you've been responsible. You replied to a team member because some of my team are 2 hours ahead of us. So you've replied to them. So you've done a little bit of work at some, you just listed it. Because do you realize at 8:30, most people are still driving to work and you have done 10 things. So I think the realization of that as well for me was like, okay, I am actually productive. Like I am actually doing stuff and every day. So hopefully that's helped everyone to get a bit of tactical that helps the mindset. Do you know what I mean?
No, absolutely agree. And I think it's a great dopamine release as well. And I think that, when you have this periods of self-reflection, so generally at the end of the week, generally on a Sunday, I reflect back on what I've achieved in the previous week, but I'm also pre-planning what I'm set to want to get done the coming week. And I just use that Sunday evening for like, I don't know, 60, 90 minutes. Doesn't have to be a long period of time, but it just gives you that brain space to allow your time to reflect and see what's actually what are some of the milestones that you achieved. And I think it's such an underestimated tactic, as you want to call it that. So I think that's a really good thing. It's really interesting as well. I want to share something as well. I used to believe, and this is a belief system, and I think we've all got beliefs, right? It doesn't matter, but whether it would be true or not true is completely irrelevant. But I used to think that if I wasn't busy, okay, that I wasn't important.
Wow.
And that is a belief system that stuck with me for many, 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 many years. Because I think the way that I'm wired is because I am a doer. Like if you gave me a to-do list, it's already done, 2 hours, that's it, done. Like I am one of those types of people, but then people are wired in different ways, right? And so I always used to believe, and it kind of goes back to that unhealthy ideology of hustle culture. If you had this kind of, and again, this was a culture and a belief system that was stuck with me for years, John, that if I didn't believe that I was busy, I'm not important, I'm not making impact, I'm not helping people. And that to me used to it used to crush me. You know what I mean? And I'm not sure if you've ever experienced that, but for those guys that are listening in, by the way, and I don't know if you can relate to this in any way, shape or form, is there anything that you would share, any final thoughts on that final kind of question?
Yeah. I mean, well, appreciate you sharing that because I think 9 times out of 10, every owner, business person is exactly like that. And I have exactly the same thing. And I realized, so my final thought on that would be, it's okay to rest. It's okay.
Thank
Because
you.
rest is productive. It's like trying to tell, let's use, because World Cup time, whenever you're watching this, it's like World Cup at the moment.
Yes, of
But
course.
those footballers play the game and they don't go and play another one straight away.
No.
They leave it on the pitch for 90 minutes and then they go and they take a few days off. Because and as business owners, we are also quote unquote professionals. But we are professionals in another way. We're probably more mentally challenged and physically challenged like sports people. But what's interestingly enough, and I want everyone to understand this, and I hope this could be a great final thought for you, is if you wanted to become the world champion boxer, right, and you had to go and do that, you would go and push yourself to limits, but your trainer would also then go, now go home and I need you to get 8 hours sleep. And by the way, most peak athletes don't just get 8 hours, they rest during the day as well, because they know they're about to push their body to the limit. You're just pushing yourself mentally to the limit. But why is that any different to physically? Because we all know, and we don't need to go into that, but whether you want to go spiritually or science-based, your mind is creating what's going on here anyway, right? Because our thoughts create our emotions, which our emotions create our actions, and our actions create our results. So overall, it's okay to rest. I will add a disclaimer. As long as you don't use rest to procrastinate and avoid what you need to face in your business.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. Just be really good, train yourself in self-awareness, get to know yourself and know when you're resting for rest's sake or to just spend time with family, which is why we all do this anyway, probably. Actually re-engaging with your purpose, and then also know when you're actually just taking rest because you're procrastinating too, because that's not an ideal thing. So hopefully that's helped them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, going back to the whole kind of high sports performance, and being an elite athlete and stuff. We talked about the importance of rest and recovery. All the top athletes do it, right? It's just as important as actually training. And you hit the nail on the head when you're like, just because we're not physically pushing our body, we're mentally pushing our body. You're absolutely 100%. And kind of rest and recovery is so underestimated, I think, because it allows you and gives you the free space to things like create self-awareness and self-reflect and, and improve and just things like that. The other thing that I would say, and again, I'm going to kind of ask one final question, is the constant. So logically, I know for a fact that logically, rest and recovery is important. I know logically, 100%, all the top athletes do it. But the other thing that's wrestling with me is guilt. So you've got guilt and then you've got rest and recovery. When you've got those two combinations, because they're two very polar opposite outcomes, how do you balance between someone that is feeling guilty to someone that needs to rest and recover? And I'm sure that you've probably had conversations with some of your clients where you can see that they're pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, and you know that they're on the brink of breaking if they don't ease up. What do you say to those people?
That's really, really good. That's a really good question. I would tell them the reason I have felt guilty stopping work is because I think that if I keep doing more, I can push things forward. But the problem is you're pushing things forward at 50% capacity when you're at that point, what you're talking about.
True.
So is it better, genuinely, this is a strategy for you to perform in your business? Is it better to go, actually, I will just take this Saturday, just this one a month if you want, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to actually do nothing. Like today, I had a mastermind day yesterday where it took it out of me. I'm in front of the room all day. I'm on my feet all day. I'm dealing with emotions. I'm dealing with this. I'm dealing with strategy. Like my mind. Woo. So what did I do before we spoke today this afternoon? I did nothing all day. And I was okay with that because I knew I needed to recover there. And I knew if I tried to get on my laptop and do work this morning, I wasn't going to give it my all because I'm already pretty drained from yesterday. So I think it's just about really getting clear with yourself. Two things: that if you do the work you think you need to get done, can you give it everything it needs to get it done properly? If it's a no, just take some. I mean, we don't have to take the whole day. Take a few hours.
Yeah.
At the same time, I want everyone to be clear, just to hopefully they can get this as well, is that as well, I go back to that you just think you need to do 100 things. And a lot of the time, doing 100 things at 10% doesn't get you a result, but doing 2 things at 100% will get you a bigger result. So if that thing keeps popping up and you're feeling guilty because you got to do all these little things that you keep talking about, don't prioritize better. And I think your Sunday thing, you nailed it when you said it is the most underestimated 60 minutes of your week, which is Sunday, brain dump, clear the decks, as I call it. You're ready for Monday kind of stuff. So
Yeah,
hopefully that's helped them understand that as
absolutely.
well, and giving some value to them.
I always go back to the question, and again, this is a question I ask my subconscious, which is this worth it?
Hmm?
And it sounds really fucking stupid, but
Yeah,
and it's kind of like, is it worth me killing myself? Is it worth me, doing this and whatever it might be? Because hey, we only live one life, and you see so many people that are affected with mental health, anxiety, even heart attacks in people in their mid 40s. It just kind of like draws me back, and I just kind of think to myself, do you know what?
Hmm.
Is all this stress really worth it?
yeah, absolutely. And I think we all need to look at that. And I think a lot of us start businesses because we want freedom and
Yes,
choice. And
agreed.
all you've done is not create any of that.
No.
So brings us full circle really is that in order to scale, exit, or even get a business to where you need to get it to, in order to get that freedom and choice that we all essentially started our businesses for, you need
Mm,
your systems, you need your team, you need your strategy, but you also need to be, what I say to her, you also need to be kind to yourself, man.
yeah,
Right?
man.
You,
Self love.
we're all just trying to do the best we can with what we know. And if you will need to know more, go and seek that information from someone who can get it to you, and then go and act on it. But the worst thing is not acting on it either, right? So we
Agreed.
have to understand the balance. It's like scales, isn't it? Rest and productivity, rest and productivity. At the same time, don't rest if you do have work to do and it needs to get done, but
Mm,
do rest if it's just going to make you unproductive anyway,
love
right?
it.
We've got to be able to know that.
Absolutely. Some good stuff there, John. Thank you so
Well,
much. Listen, for you guys that are listening in, me and John could probably talk for hours, in all
honestly, we
honesty.
really could. Really good. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
We've covered a lot of ground. I just want to say that, like, we have really packed it in. And honestly, this has been a great conversation.
Mm.
First of all, I hope you've got some value bombs from today's episode. I certainly have. We got like 3 pages of notes just from that. And for you guys that are listening in, by the way, make sure that you go and check out John Castro over on social media, LinkedIn, YouTube. And was going to say to you, feel free to reach out to him as well, mention the podcast as well. And hopefully, if you've got some questions around our conversation, whether it be around mental health or system and scale, that kind of stuff, feel free to reach out to him. I'm sure that him and his team will be more than obliged. And second of all, John, I just want to say thank you so much. Been a great show, right?
Oh, it's been awesome, buddy. I mean, me and you, we always talk longer than we need to, even on the phone. I knew this was going to go. Yeah, we could be here for a few hours. So, yeah, I appreciate you even wanting me to contribute to your audience. I appreciate anyone who's listened to even to this far. Thank you. Because, I'm on a mission to really help specifically UK business owners find freedom and choice through business ownership. So, and that we do that through systems, team, and strategy. But if you do want to, any more, catch me. The best place to catch me is LinkedIn, is a really good one. And also Instagram. It's just one John Castro. Just search it, literally the number one. And I'm the same across all social platforms.
Fantastic. Now, we'll put all the links in the show description notes, guys, to make sure that you can go ahead and do that. So without further ado, thanks very much for you, John.
Yeah.
And also thanks very much to you guys that are listening in. Make sure that if you haven't already done so, by the way, make sure that if you are following over us on YouTube or listen to this on YouTube, make sure you go and hit that follow and subscribe button and click that bell notification in that LinkedIn profile as well. And from me and John, thank you so much. And we'll see you again on The Business Strategist. Take care.
Thanks,
Speak to you
guys.
soon. Cheers now. Bye-bye.
Mhm.